it's easy for you. And then when the panel starts, we'll be calling it.
A very good morning and warm greetings to all the participants joining us today. On behalf of the International Solar Alliance, the Asian Development Bank, and CalSTART, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this session on Driving Green, Promoting Solar EV Deployment. Today's session will explore key opportunities and challenges faced by developing and emerging economies, particularly ISA member countries, in scaling up solar-charged e-mobility ecosystems. We will cover the unique regional contexts, vehicle segment needs, and insights from global industry leaders. To set the tone, we will now hear the welcome address from Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General, International Solar Alliance.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to ISA's Theme Week event on promoting solar-powered electric mobility. I extend my gratitude to Asian Development Bank, CalSTART, and the Government of Japan for their partnership in making this session possible. As the global community intensifies our efforts to combat climate change, electrifying transport has emerged as one of the most important and immediate steps we can take, especially considering the sector contributes almost 30% of global greenhouse gases emissions. But as we know, electrification alone is not enough. The power that fuels these vehicles must come from clean, renewable sources, and this is where solar energy becomes an indispensable part of the solution. For LDCs and small island states, where grid reliability remains a challenge, solar-charged electric vehicle offers a unique opportunity to bridge both the energy and the mobility divide together. At the International Solar Alliance, we are advancing this agenda through a program of scaling solar e-mobility and storage, which focuses on enabling both solar power charging infrastructure and the vehicle-integrated photovoltaic technologies. This includes solutions like solar charging stations, both grid-connected and standalone, as well as vehicles equipped with solar panels from two-wheelers and passenger cars to buses and even solar ferries. Solar EVs not only help decarbonize transport, but also enhance energy resilience by allowing vehicle batteries to be used as decentralized storage for grid support. As part of this session, we are proud to launch the report titled Readiness Assessment for Solar-Powered Electric Mobility, developing an implementation framework for ISA's least developed countries and small island developing states. It is a resource designed to guide action at both policy and operational levels. This effort is actually a multi-year program that builds on the insights from an earlier report, which was titled Charging for Change, Electric Mobility Global Learnings. That was also developed in partnership with Asian Development Bank and was launched at COP29 that highlighted the global experiences, the policy models, technological innovations, and business approaches shaping the solar EV landscape. As part of this study, a comprehensive readiness assessment was conducted to evaluate the capacity of 64 LDCs and 6 countries to adopt solar-powered electric mobility and to identify countries best positioned for pilot implementation. Today's session will offer a deep dive into the technical, policy, and financial dimensions of this transition, including insights into vehicle-integrated PV systems and solar charge infrastructure viability. We will also take opportunity to hear from leaders in the private sector as well as government space who are already putting these innovations into action, as well as from financiers who are enabling deployment at scale. The International Solar Alliance remains committed to supporting all of our 123 member countries by fostering an ecosystem for clean transport through capacity building, programmatic support, and knowledge sharing. Let us use this platform. I welcome you all today to exchange practical insights, identify common bottlenecks, but most importantly, forge new collaborations and solutions that can bring solar e-mobility into the mainstream across the globe. I would like to end by reaffirming ISA's readiness to work alongside each of you in driving forward a cleaner, more connected, and more sustainable future for our youth and women, creating jobs. Thank you and wish you all the best.
It is now my honor to invite Mr. Jeevan Acharya, Principal Energy Specialist, Asian Development Bank, to deliver the inaugural address. Mr. Jeevan Acharya is working in Energy Sector Office, South Asia Team, Sectors Group of Asian Development Bank as Principal Energy Specialist. He currently focuses on developing and implementing energy efficiency, renewable energy, and other broader energy sector projects in India and Nepal. Yeah. We can't hear the audio, please.
ADB and ISA are working together to identify, develop, and implement projects on solar e-mobility to deploy solar energy at scale. Solar-powered electric vehicles, as you all know, present a swift path to cutting greenhouse gas emissions, including enabling the greater uptake of clean energy. Solar's decreasing costs and plentiful availability make it an attractive, sustainable power source for electric vehicles, reinforcing the e-mobility system's eco-friendliness and energy resilience. The solar and electric mobility integration enables greater penetration of both clean technologies. The move towards electric vehicles, especially in developing countries, least developing countries, LDCs, and small island developing states, CIS, is vital for meeting the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement and tackling air pollution, assuming sufficient energy supply is available. To accelerate large-scale deployment of SEVs, especially in LDCs and CIS, I think following factors need to be involved in the approach. First is the enhancing policy and regulatory measures to encourage broader and more rapid uptake of SEVs. Second is developing business strategies and identifying financing avenues to facilitate the adoption of SEVs and associated charging technologies. Exchanging expertise and transferring technology from neighboring nations that have demonstrated success in executing SEV initiatives. Last but not the least, conduct the capacity and demand assessment of SEVs in select ISA member countries in consultation with stakeholders. In conclusion, by coming together, sharing knowledge, and fostering collaboration, we can accelerate the ecosystem readiness assessment, feasibility assessment, development, and deployment of SEV technologies. I invite you all to engage wholeheartedly in today's discussions, to share your insights, and to contribute to defining the future of green transportation. I look forward to the fruitful outcomes of our collaborative endeavors. I once again thank ISA for inviting me to address this session. I thank the speakers and participants who have come to share their insights. I look forward to interesting discussions in this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acharya, for sharing ADB's vision and strong support in this vital area. We now move to a feature presentation titled Zero Emission Commercial Vehicles 2025 is the Tipping Point for Global Transition by Ms. Stephanie Kodish, Senior Global Director, Drive to Zero, CalSTART.
I'm Stephanie Kodish, Global Director of CalSTART's Drive to Zero program. Drive to Zero focuses on accelerating the decarbonization of commercial vehicles by forging global partnerships, advocating for strong policies, and developing innovative tools that support the rapid adoption of zero-emission trucks and buses. Together with the government of the Netherlands and Colombia, we co-lead the Global Memorandum of Understanding on Zero-Emission Medium and Heavy-Duty Vehicles. The global MOU is the international standard for transitioning to 100% zero-emission trucks and buses by 2040, with an interim goal of 30% new sales by 2030. This is in line with the Paris Agreement and supported by 40 country signatories and over 250 industry, subnational governments, investors, knowledge partners, and other stakeholders. We work together as a community to achieve the goals of the global MOU. But the road to zero-emission trucks and buses is steep. It's also urgent. Though medium heavy-duty vehicles make up only 4% of road transport, they produce 75% of health-harming pollution and consume a third of all road transport fossil fuels. Diesel emissions alone cause over 330,000 premature deaths and $1 trillion in global health damages each year. If we do nothing, freight emissions from diesel are expected to at least double by 2050. The challenge reaches beyond just emissions. Today, we face a landscape shaped by geopolitical unrest, misinformation campaigns, and the volatility of global oil markets. These forces, combined with high upfront costs of zero-emitting vehicles, strained supply chains, uneven infrastructure, they all create formidable barriers, especially for emerging markets and small businesses. In many regions, supportive policies like zero-emission vehicle standards or infrastructure requirements are weak or inconsistent. Overcoming these challenges demands bold investment, collaboration, and rapid innovation, and momentum is building. The years 2025 and 2026 will mark the tipping point when transport scales up to be clean. Let's look at the numbers. Of the 84 million medium and heavy duty vehicles on the road globally, only 2.5% are zero emission, but still the transition is unmistakable. Since last year at this time, approximately 190,000 zero emission buses and trucks have been sold worldwide, bringing the total number of on-road vehicles to nearly 750,000. Today, there are 952 models of zero-emitting trucks and buses globally available, and there are new options that arrive every month. That's not because they're just cleaner, they're also more efficient, they're quieter, and they're increasingly powered by renewables. And when zero-emitting trucks and buses are charged by renewable power, the 63% emission reductions they achieve jumps up to around 90%. We are experiencing a global transformation. Norway continues to set the pace with nearly 13% of its trucks being zero emitting. Across Europe, electric truck sales nearly tripled in 2023. In the US, zero emission buses surpassed the 10% market share for the very first time last year. In China, over 230,000 zero emission trucks were sold in 2024 alone. And this contributes to helping China that reduced its oil consumption by 8% over 15 years. India is deploying tens of thousands of electric buses and scaling up electric freight vehicles and charging infrastructure. Bogota uses 100% renewable energy to power its fleet of 1,500 electric buses with 500 high-capacity chargers across charging yards. This is one of Latin America's largest zero-emitting transit systems. Thailand is also emerging as a leader in Southeast Asia with more than 5,000 electric buses on the road and rapidly expanding its infrastructure charging. You might ask, what is driving the surge? There are three forces: policy, investment, and infrastructure. First, policy. Ambitious supply-side regulations like zero-emission vehicle sales mandates and fuel economy standards. These ignite innovation and provide market certainty. In California, 1 in 6 new medium and heavy-duty vehicles is now zero emission, surpassing policy goals 2 years ahead of schedule. Where there are strong policies, markets move. Second is investment. Public and private sectors are stepping up with innovative financing and large-scale infrastructure projects. The EU is investing billions in charging networks, while companies like Zenobē, ZeroNox, Billiony, and others are pioneering new business models to make zero-emission commercial vehicles accessible and affordable. Third, infrastructure. The global EV charging market is set to grow nearly 9-fold by 2034. Networks like Europe's Milence and California's charging corridors are making zero-emission freight viable, alongside efforts like the Global Green Road Corridors Initiative, with a dozen freight routes across regions accelerating the transition globally. At the heart of the transformation is the Global MOU. This coalition of governments and industry leaders is committed to clear targets, sharing best practices and aligning policy, investment, and infrastructure to accelerate the transition worldwide. Already, 1/3 of global MOU signatories have adopted strong supply-side regulations, the foundation to transforming the sector. And countries like Ethiopia are setting bold examples by banning imports of internal combustion engine vehicles. You might wonder why 2025 and 2026 will be the tipping points. It's because for the first time, we see the convergence of technology, policy, and investment at a global scale. The cost gap between zero-emission and diesel vehicles is closing rapidly. Total cost of ownership is reaching parity in key markets, and early adopters are already seeing up to 40% lower costs. Battery and fuel cell prices are falling, and manufacturing is scaling up. Governments are aligning industry policy, trade frameworks, and public procurement with zero-emission goals. Charging infrastructure, it's moving from blueprint to reality, no longer a barrier, but a backbone for the new freight system. Most importantly, the world is responding not just with pilot projects, but systemic, coordinated action. The Global MOU is the framework uniting governments and industry, civil society, all behind a shared vision, clear targets, and measurable progress. 2025 and 2026 will be remembered as the years when clean transport shifted from promise to mainstream reality. The decisions and investments that we make now will determine the health of our communities, the resilience of our economies, and the security of our energy future for generations to come. With continued leadership, collaboration, and the guiding framework of the Global MOU, we will deliver a zero-emission future, one that is cleaner, healthier, more secure, and more just for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for those fascinating global insights. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Mridula Bhardwaj to present the ISA program updates on solar e-mobility and clean transport. Dr. Mridula Bhardwaj is a capacity building specialist at the International Solar Alliance under the ISA ADB Technical Assistance Program. She is currently leading ISA programs related to green hydrogen, solar electric mobility, and storage. Dr. Bhardwaj.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin the presentation now. So I will be speaking on the overall activities that we are doing on solar e-mobility and clean transport at ISA. Going to the next slide. So for those of you who are not familiar with ISA, could I have my presentation? The ISA is a global intergovernmental organization dedicated to advancing solar power adoption for a carbon neutral future. So going to the next one. So this is the structure of the ISA assembly. ISA is co-led by India and France. India is the president, France is co-president. And we have 4 regions. Asia Pacific region is represented by 1 vice president each from Australia and Republic of Sri Lanka. And then for Africa region, we have vice president, 1 each from Republic of Ghana and Republic of Seychelles. For Latin America and the Caribbean region, we have Grenada and Republic of Suriname representing VPs. And Europe and other regions, when I say other, it means USA. We have Federal Republic of Germany and Republic of Italy, 1 vice president each. We have 5 committees, 1 standing committee and 1 committee each for each of the 4 regions. So we have 5 committees. The ISA Secretariat, we provide programmatic support to member countries for promotion of solar solutions We support in strategic decision-making and advocacy, and also we facilitate engagement with diverse stakeholders for conceptualization of projects and programs. So as I speak, we have 123 member countries. Out of these, 105 are full members who have ratified ISA framework agreement, and we have 18 signatories countries. So this is the overall structure of ISA. Going to the next one. The next one, please. So we have 9 programs in ISA, as you can see on the screen. Solar park and floating solar, so scaling solar mini grids. Then we have one on the solar rooftop, agri-solar, solar for heating and cooling systems, affordable finance at scale, solar PV and battery waste management, and solar for green hydrogen. And today, this workshop or session is under Scaling Solar, E-Mobility and Storage Program of ISA. So we'll go to the next one. So what is the role of ISA? What do we do? So going to the next slide. So we provide support to our member countries in assessment of readiness levels and facilitate the deployment of solar e-mobility in ISA member countries. That is the overall role that we play. And this is done through 5 acts: enabling policy and regulatory framework, identifying technological gaps, and go-to resources. They can be countries, companies, or where exactly the countries who want to implement solar e-mobility, where should they go in terms of raw materials, or we provide them all the information. Then facilitating investment environment for commercially viable solar e-mobility sector. As you know, this is a new sector. Solar is well known, EV is well known, but when you integrate the two, it's an evolving sector. Identification of viable project pipeline, creating global synergies and leveraging partnerships with public and private sector. So that's the kind of support we provide. Going to the next one. So what is the approach that we do adopt? The next slide, please. So we are basically focusing on 2-pronged approach. One is the solar-powered vehicle and battery charging stations, where we focus on battery swap stations and grid-connected and standalone EV charging stations. And the second approach is vehicle-integrated photovoltaic technology, VIPV. And one of our panelists is specialist on that. He'll be talking in detail about that. VIPV is integrating solar panels on the roof or body of the vehicle. And the focus is on advancing VIPV as part of its broader mission to scale solar energy deployment in our member countries. So going to the next one. The next slide, please. And we all know the benefits of integrating charging EV through renewable energy. It's a sustainable energy source, reduced carbon footprint, then we have extended driving range because of the panel integration with the vehicle, reduced operational cost. I saw a report by Bloomberg NEF where they have said that saves around $4,000 over 10 years. Lower grid dependency, obviously, because we are using solar. Challenges, of course, as I said, it's a new and evolving sector. So we have limited energy capture efficiency of the panels, 15 to 18% as we speak. Higher initial cost because you have to pay upfront for the panel. Weather dependency, solar is variable. So, on cloudy days, you don't have that much radiation. Space constraint because you are limited with the surface area provided by the body of the vehicle to install your panel. And battery wear management because you are doing additional charging cycles. So these are the challenges. So going to the next. So today we are going to present my colleague from ICF India, who are our project implementation team. They will be giving the details of readiness assessment studies that we did for ISA's least developed countries and small island development states member countries. Going to the next one. So in terms of scope, what we did, we first mapped the opportunities of the solar EV sector, and this mapping was done keeping the vehicle segment in mind and region and countries, because as you know, each country and region have very specific architecture of the grid and very specific requirement. Compilation of case studies we have done, a smaller compilation we had released in COP last year, but in the report that will be launched today, we have much bigger compilation of global best practices. Then we have mapped the factors impacting accelerated SEV deployment, technological factors, policy, regulatory, and many other, which you will see in the presentation after me. Then what we have done is we have identified critical screening factors, or you can call it as screening parameters, using which we have developed a framework for ecosystem readiness assessment. And then we have done country prioritization. As I speak, we have around 64 LDCs and SIDS member countries under ISA. And they were consulted through many workshops, and their feedback was incorporated when we were developing this framework. We call it SERA framework, Solar EV Ecosystem Readiness Assessment Framework. Going to the next slide. So this is my last slide coming to, so this is the phase 1 that we are talking about in releasing the report, but upcoming proposals relate to the next slide. SEV sector deep dive. So in the phase 1, we have done the, I would say, broader studies, which is not really deep dive, but which is deep insights. And now we know the front runners in these regions. So we will be doing country-specific deep dive and identify challenges and opportunities for large-scale deployment of solar integrated EV. And then we'll be providing support in developing national roadmaps for SEV sector. As I speak, already some of the member countries have approached us to develop the national strategy and also mission and solar EV roadmap specific for that country. Providing support in capacity building across SEV value chain, because as I said, it's a newly evolving sector, so we need a lot of capacity building, and identifying pilot pipelines and viable financing mechanism is one of the most important things that we plan to do going forward. And this is open for building collaboration, so any interested countries are most welcome. So going to the next one. So we've built in the last couple of years since we started this program, a lot of partnership and outreach things we have done. Going to the next one, please. We have partnership, World Bank, ESP partnership, then IESA. IEA is one of our advisory committee member for another project called Green Hydrogen. But as you know, green hydrogen is also one of the long duration energy storage technology. So everything is kind of integrated. And then we have hosted several sessions of solar EV at COP along with our countries who participated and collaborated with us, and also with organizations like CalSTART today. And then going to the next one. This is the report we launched last year at COP, which I said it's on our website. This is a global compilation of pilots of solar EV across the vehicle segment, starting from ferry, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and small cars. Going to the next. Thank you very much. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our project implementation team. And I will request Kakul to please come and introduce the team members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mridula. Next, we will dive into the detailed findings of the readiness assessment of solar electric mobility and LDCs and SIDS. I am happy to introduce our colleagues from the ISA project team at ICF Consulting India, Mr. Pavan Dwivedi, who will lead this presentation. Mr. Pavan Dwivedi leads the electric mobility and clean transportation practice at ICF India, where he closely works with governments, multilateral institutions, and private sector stakeholders to accelerate the global transition to sustainable, low-emission transport systems. Over to you, ICF team.
Here, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Great. Thank you. So indeed a pleasure to be presenting at this prestigious forum today. And special thanks to ADB and ISA for giving us this opportunity to talk more in detail about the framework which we have developed over the past few months. So I will be sharing my screen now, and if it can be confirmed that whether my screen is visible to all.
Yes, Pavan, we can see it.
Great. So starting my presentation today, speaking in context of driving green, promoting solar EV deployment. So the main context of our study was to prepare a readiness assessment framework for enhancing solar powered electric mobility, specifically for least developed countries and small island developing states, which are part of ISA as a community. The presentation covers 6 sections, starting with context that why do we need solar electric vehicles a bit more in detail, and in context to the LDC and SIDS member countries, what typical challenges these face and how SEV as a solution can be implemented to abate some of these challenges. Then we highlight a bit more about the key objectives of the study and what are the outcomes which we achieved from this study. Immediately after that, we would also like to briefly touch upon what are the existing decarbonization initiatives which are taken by 64 ISA member countries which got covered under the study. Then we talk a bit about the case studies on solar electric vehicles, since it's a newer technology for this part of the world. So we just thought that it would make sense to make people aware, to make the country and member officials aware that yes, this kind of technology is possible, and countries amongst themselves are already implementing these technologies at a large scale. Then from that, we go deep into each of the drivers which are required for implementing solar electric mobility across 3 levels, which is policy, regulatory, technological landscape, and economic opportunities. And finally, from all the analysis, we have developed the SERA framework, which is the Solar EV Readiness Assessment Framework, with the help of which member countries were assessed that how ready they are to implement this technology based on several parameters. Starting with my presentation today, so setting a brief context that why SEV as a solution is eminent for LDCs and SIDs in present context. So despite low motorization rate, if you can see on the screen right now, the transport sector emissions share is very high, specifically if we talk about LDC and SIDS member countries. And enough has been discussed about the harmful effect of GHG emissions from transport sector. So with electrification of transport sector being seen as one of the critical solutions to abate GHG emissions from the sector, but in context of LDCs and SIDs, which you can see in lighter pink shade on the global map right now, there is another challenge as far as the availability of sustainable energy is concerned. So approximately what we have seen through multiple data sets, the member countries across LDCs and SIDs are still not there as far as universal and equitable access to modern energy services is concerned. So coupled with other challenges like obsolete vehicles technology in terms of vehicle age and emission norms in many of the member countries which we studied in as part of our engagement, higher dependence of fossil fuel engine fueled vehicles, creating you can say adding the overall GHG emissions from the transport sector. And in many cases, we've also seen that the quality of the fuel which is being used is spurious in nature, which is adding complexity to the overall GHG emission problem. And yes, like I have already highlighted that there is a serious concern about the power deficit which the member country region is currently facing. In this context, SEV solar powered based electric mobility options, both in terms of vehicles on panels over vehicles, as well as solar powered charging infrastructure, could be seen as a promising solution for these countries if they were to abate emissions and if they want to move to cleaner and greener mode of transport. And some of the benefits has been discussed already by Dr. Mridula. So just repeating few of them again. Definitely the power is coming in through renewable energy source. Huge amount of savings as far as GHG emissions is concerned. Definitely lower operating cost if we talk about the entire life, operating life of individual vehicle segments. Many of the member countries across LDCs and SIDS categories do not have well-developed grids. So this type of, you can say, technology offers off-grid capabilities wherein surplus energy produced by this particular transport segment can be contributed back to the grid. Energy independence, if this technology gets implemented. Quiet and smooth operations, again, you can say saving a lot in terms of noise pollution, which is otherwise being seen if fossil fuel vehicles are considered. And yes, a possibility for member countries to explore this new technology, taking help from regional counterparts who are already implementing this on ground. So with that as context, coming on to the key objectives of the study, and like I said before, the key objective is to prepare a assessment framework with the help of which 64 member countries can be seen that how mature they are to adopt solar powered electric mobility, what the current ecosystem in these countries look like, what are the challenges they face, and based on global best practices that what the regional leaders are doing in each of these segments, what lessons can be learned in contextualization with the individual and unique problems LDCs and SIDs face. And the ultimate outcome of our study is to identify suitable countries for piloting project implementation who are ahead in terms of maturity as far as this new technology is concerned. In order to prepare the readiness assessment framework, we have done exhaustive policy and regulatory analysis of the member countries and what the global leaders are doing, how they are trying to promote this technology through specific incentives. What are the economic prospects as in terms of the overall SEV market size for our member countries, and in terms of whether it makes economic sense to transition to SEV-based vehicles. We have also done total cost of ownership assessment across all three fuel types, starting from fossil fuel, then EV, and then moving on to SEV. What are the various mechanisms through which various government departmental agencies can come together and help individual countries implement this technology on ground? And then definitely, based on all the analysis, what are the key elements which have gone into the overall preparation of the SEV readiness assessment framework? What all parameters have been considered and how each of these countries fare as far as all these parameters are concerned? So, ladies and gentlemen, giving you a brief snapshot of the kind of countries, member countries which got covered in four regions, which is Asia, Pacific, Latin America and Caribbean, and Africa region. Overall, 64 countries spread across these four regions, starting with 8 countries in Asia, which are on your screen right now, including Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, Myanmar, Nepal, Yemen, Bahrain, Maldives. 11 countries in Pacific: Solomon Islands, Fiji, Marshall Islands, Nauru, PNG, Palau, Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu, Kiribati, Tuvalu. 14 countries in LAC. Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Cuba, Dominica, Dominican Republic, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti. Moving on to the Africa region, we have 31 member countries from Africa, again across LDCs, SIDS, and LDC SIDS both category. Benin, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Chad, Congo, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gambia, Guinea, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mozambique, Niger, Rwanda, Senegal, Somalia, South Sudan, Togo, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, Cabo Verde, Mauritius, Seychelles, Comoros, Guinea-Bissau, Sao Tome. Moving on with another critical and very important section which we observed from our study is the existing transport decarbonization initiatives in the member countries which we covered in our LDCs and SIDS. It's very heartening to note that again, in each of the sections, what we have done is we have, you can say, we have presented region-wise key insights and analysis in all the sections down below. So starting with the first region, Asian region, it's very heartening to note that almost all countries have some form of targets as far as achieving net zero is concerned. And since transport sector is a significant contributor to emissions, again, it was very promising to note, very encouraging to note that many of the member countries have defined targets for achieving net zero. And out of these countries, many have gone to the extent of identifying and defining targets for transport sector electrification as well. We have again cases in the region which have gone beyond, and not only in terms of transport electrification, but they have also started talking about how to integrate our resources in as far as EV is concerned. So there is recognition from member countries in Asia region that yes, SEV offers as a sustainable solution if you talk about clean transport transition in Asia as a region is concerned. Similar kind of understanding from the Pacific region. Again, all the countries have defined targets for achieving net zero. Many of them have defined targets for net zero by a specific year. Again, very promising to note, defined targets for transport electrification have been set up by these countries which are on the screen right now. And then again, we have member countries who, like Solomon Islands, who have defined net zero targets and transport electrification targets as far as LDC category is concerned. Moving on to the Latin America and Caribbean region, we have similar kind of we developed similar kind of understanding in the region. All countries have some form of targets, whereas more than 60% of the countries have defined net zero targets. And again, out of those, many countries have defined targets for transport electrification sector as well. Similar kind of understanding for Africa region member countries as well. Promising to note that all the countries, like in the other regions, have identified transport sector electrification as a potential solution to abating GHG emissions from the sector. Again, which is overall contributing to achieving the net zero vision by a specific year for all of these countries. So overall, if I talk about the in terms of climate commitments and national policies across the globe, which we have analyzed in our study, that it's the current, as far as SEV technology is concerned, the landscape is very nascent. But yes, there is recognition from countries which see SEV technologies and its potential benefits as one of the most promising technology which can be adopted to minimize the GHG emissions from the transport sector. So we then go a deep into the case studies on SEV's technologies, what other countries are, I would say, doing as far as this particular technology is concerned. And overall, we have covered 17 case studies, which are live examples of this technology, which is being used by cities spread across the countries, which are on your screen right now. So we have categorized our case studies in line with the three drivers of this technology, which is the technological innovation, innovative business model, and policy innovations. So we have detailed, you can say, case studies wherein we are capturing how this technology has been developed, who are the key stakeholders who are implementing this, what are the recorded impacts which has come out after implementing this particular technology on ground in various cities. And as far as vehicle segment is concerned, we have covered 5 vehicle modes, which is two-wheelers, three-wheelers, small cars, boats, and ferries. Special attention has been given to boats and ferries because many of the case study countries and in fact member countries are from SIDS category. So water transport becomes an important mode of transport in these countries. So from that perspective, we have covered solar technology as far as boats and ferries is concerned. What kind of mode has been implemented, what kind of mode has been introduced in the market, how it has been operating, what kind of total cost of operations this particular mode is observing as far as all these geographies are concerned. Under the innovative business model, how different agencies are promoting the usage of this mode, either by providing incentives and rebates, lowering down of financing rates from financing agencies like banks to promote this particular technology. And then finally policy innovations, because since this is a new technology, bringing in together renewable energy related stakeholders as well as mobility sector related stakeholders. So we thought it is imperative to see that how these agencies are coming together and helping promote this technology, usage of technology under their jurisdiction. And a shorter version of this got launched at the prestigious COP29 forum last year, which covered 9 case studies across 7 countries, 3 regions, 5 modes got covered. And again, the the 3 drivers sector got covered was technology, business model, and policy. So detailed case studies have been included as part of our final report, which will be launched immediately after the presentation. So moving on to the next important element, which are the key drivers of solar electric mobility, which we have considered in our study today. So like I started initially, that any technology, be it any sector, charging infrastructure development and standards, since this is a new technology, touching up across various, you can say, topical jurisdiction as far as government stakeholders are concerned, because we are bringing in together stakeholders from power sector as well as the transport or the mobility sector. Then the business landscape, whether I would say the market is present as far as total number of SEV projection is concerned. So we have made some projection that up to 2030, a very short-term projection to see the viability, that whether the number exists in the market to make this transition or not, and whether it makes financial and economic sense for users to migrate from fossil fuel to SEVs across vehicle segment modes. And I will be talking about that in detail in terms of savings as far as total cost of operations is concerned. And then the technological landscape in terms of the entire value chain, because since this is a new technology, countries would need to amend their existing automotive manufacturing supply chain. What are the key elements, what they can learn from regional leaders, and what is it that they need to fix to implement this technology within their jurisdiction. So starting with the policy and regulatory landscape, this got, and the similar kind of analysis was done for all the other all the other drivers. We started with understanding what are the key policy measures which are governing this technology at global level, how sector leaders and regional leaders are performing after doing a global scan on related policies and regulations. We did a detailed review of all member countries, in what mode and format this technology is getting recognized in various policy interventions, and then finally coming up with the country specific challenges and what are the opportunity areas for all the stakeholders to provide an enabling requirement as far as policy and regulatory provisions are concerned. So quickly moving on to the existing global frameworks and policies which are currently trying to promote SEV as a technology. While there is no clear-cut specific policies which are focusing on SEV as a technology, but yes, there is recognition at international agreements such as the Paris Agreement, which is the main cause because of which the countries are now working towards minimizing their emissions. And as an offshoot, initiatives like Clean Energy Ministerial, EV30 at 30 campaign to pushing countries to transition to cleaner mode of transport. And then national level policies, either in terms of recognition, because countries have been formulating green sector policies, either through in terms of EV policies, climate action plans, or NDCs, solar or RE policy, automobile policy, and transport mobile policy. So all these kind of policy documents we have seen as far as member countries are concerned, which are impacting the solar EV legislation framework. So quickly moving on to brief highlights that how regional countries are utilizing different mechanisms, incentives as far as subnational policies and national policies on integration of solar RE in EVs concerned. Netherlands have gone to, they have designed programs and schemes wherein they are incentivizing setting up of RE-based EV charging infrastructure, making the standards made available to larger public so that it can be streamlined, and definitely offering tax deductions. Similar tax deductions are observed in countries like Belgium and Japan. They are offering, you can say, a tax from fossil fuel usage used to subsidize climate change projects, including EV powered. I'm specifically focusing on Japan right now, which including EV powers 100% by electricity generated from our resources. There is a clear-cut you can say rebate for this particular segment. Then we have other cases from India and China as well, which they are trying to integrate solar RE into EV segments through specific incentives and plans and specific implementation case studies on ground. With that said, this is what the regional members are doing. But as far as our member countries across the regions which we have analyzed in our study, that there is a gap, that there is a comprehensive solar e-mobility policies. There is not a single case which is focusing on this technology solely, which is then translating into challenges like, in absence of strong regulatory framework, it becomes a bit difficult for member countries, member LDC countries and CIDS countries to implement this technology. Lack of concrete support in terms of policies like there are only recommendations, but no clear-cut roadmap has been laid out that how this technology should be implemented. Financial support is low at the moment because there are apprehensions about this new technology and its efficiencies. So that needs to be built as we go along to make the member countries realize the potential benefits SEV as a technology offers. What are the funding mechanism and financial initiatives? More on the recommendation side now, if we are moving from identifying challenges across policies and regulatory environment. Now moving on to what kind of tax reduction, deduction and subsidies can work in context of member LDC countries and SID countries. Tax reduction for private individuals for home chargers utilizing green electricity. We have an example from Belgium. Similar tax reduction for companies investing in electrically powered passenger cars with integrated solar panels. We have a clear-cut case from Netherlands offering rebate in this context. And then subsidy to RE-based charging station. Goa, which is a city in India, which is offering 20% subsidy to solar powered charging stations for setting up of charging infrastructure. So with this analysis, we have tried to highlight what kind of tax rebates, incentives can be offered to the entire stakeholders, entire set of stakeholders who are important for setting up this entire technology within their jurisdiction. Another form of incentives can be in terms of fossil fuel tax usage. Japan, I have spoken about it, that there is a carbon tax to support energy efficiency and promote RE-powered EVs. There are other grants, financial support for homeowners for setting up solar-powered EV charging infrastructure. Germany is offering that under a specific scheme. Funding for e-charging points powered by resources for businesses, public authorities, associations, and institutes. We have a case from Austria, wherein all of these stakeholders have been provided funds to augment the implementation of charging infrastructure within their premises. With that being said, we move on to the next driver, which is focusing on the business landscape. Starting with what is the SEV market size for the next 5 years, and then the total cost of ownership, whether it makes sense for individual vehicle segment to transition from fossil fuels to solar powered based photovoltaic integrated vehicles, as well as solar powered charging infrastructure. So starting with the approach for establishing the SEV market size, which was done in 3 steps, starting with understanding the what is the total vehicle market for the next 5 years. And out of that, how many of these vehicle is positioned to transition to EV, and what would be the corresponding EV charging demand. And finally, out of this particular EV number of EVs and the EV charging demand, what could be the total SEV market size, both in terms of the number of SEVs as well as EV charging demand being met by solar as a potential energy source. And the framework has been applied separately for 3 land transport vehicle modes, which is 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and 4-wheelers in LDCs and SIDS member countries. And the output, like I said, is the SEVs by 2030 and the energy required to power these SEVs in terms of gigawatt hours. So giving you a brief overview of what the potential SEV market size for 64 LDCs and SIDS member countries are concerned. So we estimate that close to about 3.37 million vehicles are expected to transition to SEV by 2030. And again, we have vehicle category wise that out of 2, 3, and 4-wheeler, we estimated that close to about 73% of these vehicles would be in the 3-wheeler category. Similarly, if I talk about the potential EV charging demand being met by solar for 64 member countries, close to about 1900 gigawatt hours of units which are required to power SEVs would come in from a solar power charging infrastructure. And it is pertinent to note that 85% of this particular market rests in the APAC region because the transition is more prominent in this particular region as far as EV technology is concerned. Moving on to another critical element, which we have analyzed as far as the business environment, as far as the SEV technology is concerned, is the total cost of ownership analysis across these four vehicle segments. We have assessed total cost of ownership uh, through elements like the absolute vehicle cost, fuel cost has been considered in terms of the cost of petrol, electricity, fuel taxes, all these parameters have been considered. The resale value of the vehicle in terms of scrappage value after its useful life has been considered, and other costs like the insurance, maintenance, and registration fees have been considered uh, as far as the total cost of ownership analysis is concerned. So, with that, giving you a snapshot of what the reduction in total cost of ownership across different vehicle segment is concerned through a very simplistic representation, which is on your screen right now. There are detailed assumptions, vehicle specific assumptions, which have been laid out in the report. So please feel free to go through the contents of the report. And like I said, quickly walking you through the benefits in terms of total cost of ownership, as far as starting with the small car, a very significant reduction. If we talk about the total useful life of a car, 48% reduction if we move from petrol to EV, and then further reduction of 1% if we move from EV to SEV. Similar kind of reductions if we talk about the two-wheeler segment, uh, approximately 47% if we move from petrol to EV, and then again a significant 12% reduction if we further move from EV to SEV. In terms of three-wheelers, again from fossil fuel to EV, there is a reduction of 55% as far as total cost of ownership is concerned, and a further significant 6% if we move from EV to SEV segment. In terms of ferry, similar kind of savings, 55% if we move from petrol or diesel to EV, and from EV to SEV, another 6% reduction in terms of total cost of ownership. And this could be primarily attributed to the fact that the power which is getting generated by solar is cheaper in many sense. So with the help of which we are able to assess and record the benefits as far as reduced total cost of ownership is concerned across all these vehicle modes, from fossil fuels to EV and then further to SEV. Coming on to the last driver of the SEV ecosystem, which is the technological landscape. And I spoke about the SEV value chain, which we have analyzed that the current automobile value chain would need to be revamped, and it need to be updated if a country sees value add in implementing SEV at scale. For this, again, multiple, you can say, step approach was adopted to detail out what are the technological interventions as far as this SEV technology is concerned. First, we identified what are and the steps for doing that is on the screen right now. First, we identified the SEV value chain. SEV value chain, what are the key elements? How global leaders are, you can say, fixing their automobile value chain to make it suitable to manufacture SEVs. What are the significant challenges and solutions for different member countries, which they can learn from global regional leaders, and which is then getting translated into learnings for LDCs and SIDS member countries. So I'll not be going into details of each of these steps, but please feel free to refer to our detailed report wherein we have recorded uh, uh, the analysis, our insights across all the steps, starting from raw material extraction as far as SEV technology is concerned, component manufacturing, vehicle assembly, charging infrastructure installation and maintenance, end of life management, and recycling. So, all of these components have been considered. So, with that being said, coming on to the main, you can say, the results of our solar EV ecosystem readiness assessment framework. So, all of these elements, policy and regulatory analysis, business landscape evaluation, technology landscape assessment, has helped us to identify what are those parameters and key indicators which are essential for any country if they have to shift from fossil to clean transport technology such as the SEV. So here is the framework which we have devised as far as SEV adoption technology is concerned and related infrastructure for ISA member countries specifically. Starting with the technology related indicators, we have two indicators and then further sub indicators which are on your screen, specifically focusing on solar power generation assessment and its ability and the ability of the country to do this. And what is the e-mobility readiness, that how transition has happened in that country. In terms of business related indicators, what is what elements like what is the project outlook, what is the business environment, what is the monetary commitment in terms of the public finance, the how much amount of funding government has allocated to transition to cleaner mode of transport, including EVs and SEVs, if the case may be. And then finally, in terms of policy related indicators, whether there are specific targets to transition from fossil to cleaner mode of transport, if there are enabling regulations both in terms of RE policies and e-mobility policies, and if there are specific targets like in terms of solar power, solar energy getting generated in term versus the overall power requirement, transport electrification targets. So overall, 8 pillars spread across comprising spread across these three categories and 13 indicators, which has gone into the development of this framework. Coming on to the interesting outcome of our analysis, the entire framework has been utilized to grade all the member countries in 4 segments, which are the categories are on your screen right now. Starting with pioneers, all countries which are currently leading the adoption of solar electric mobility solutions. Then the accelerator category, where the countries have shown significant promise, but there are specific areas where they need to focus upon. Early adopters are those countries which have an promising approach to embrace SEV technologies. They have taken some initial steps. And then the potential adopters, those who have indicated targets that they would like to transition to clean mode of transport, but nothing significant has been you can say observed in terms of on ground action across all these indicators are concerned. So based on that, the results for the Asian countries is on your screen. It's good and it's encouraging to note that as far as Asia region is concerned, we have a healthy mix of countries spread across the three categories, which is the accelerators, early adopters, and potential adopters categorization. Results for Pacific countries are on the screen. Similar results for Pacific countries. Similar results for LAC countries. Again, similar results for African countries. A good mix of countries spread across all the 4 categories. And finally, this is my last slide, which is the summary of results for all 64 countries. We have good amount of countries which are in the pioneer category as well as accelerator categories, then a healthy number of countries as early adopters, and then potential adopters, which gives us some kind of indicator wherein who are those countries where the pilot projects as far as this particular SEV technology is concerned can be implemented. With this, I thank you all of you for the patient hearing, and over to the ISA organizers at the event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pawan, for this detailed assessment and valuable insights. Now, I would like to introduce our panelists for the session. This session will be moderated by Mr. Joseph Teja from CalSTART and Dr. Mridula Bhardwaj. Joseph is a public policy specialist with over 13 years of experience at the intersection of climate finance, infrastructure development, and sustainable transport. He has led several high-impact, country-driven initiatives advancing zero-emission vehicles and sustainable mobility in India. At CalSTART, he spearheads efforts to accelerate the market for zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles by driving policy certainty and industry alignment through innovative public-private partnerships. Also joining our panel today is Dr. Kiichi Komoto. Sir, if you could please come up on the stage. Yes. Dr. Kiichi Komoto is working for the Mizuho Research and Technologies Limited, Tokyo, Japan. He has been in the field of PV technology for more than 30 years, especially from viewpoints of environmental and socio-economic aspects. Currently, he is managing IEA PVPS Task 17, PV and Transport, which is one of the technology collaboration programs under the IEA. Welcome, sir. We also have Ms. Mano Roland. Please, ma'am. Ms. Mano, she works at the Economic Department of the Embassy of France in Japan as Sustainable Development Attaché to develop Franco-Japanese ties in the field of energy, transports, building, and environment. Welcome, ma'am. Also, we have our virtual speakers as part of the panel. Mr. Sandikt Thandasheri, who is the founder and CEO of Nevolt. Mr. Sandikt Thandasheri is the founder of CEO of Nevolt Solar and Electric Boats, the firm that built India's first solar ferry and recently the largest and fastest solar boat as well. Now they're in the process of completing landmark projects in defense, fishing, and ROROs. Can we please have the speakers on the stage, on the screen, please? We also have Mr. Karthikeya Haryani, who's the founder and CEO of Group Billion E. Welcome, sir. Mr. Karthikeya is the founder and CEO of Group Billion E, and he's also the alumni of Stanford University, and LD College of Engineering, and he's an entrepreneur by passion and an engineer at heart. Welcome to all the panelists. Now we've come to the most exciting part of the session, which is the launch of our report. So I would like to invite our guests from JETRO to please come up on stage and join the ceremony. We have Ms. Hanana Nakanishi and Mr. Kenji Miyao from JETRO. Thank you. Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. Can you start on the front?
Yes.
If you go to the front, please, all of us. Please come. And here. Mr. Teacher, you can also come here so that it will be a nice picture. Miss Mano. Kaku, you
Yes.
also come, please.
over to you, Joseph, to lead the panel.
Thank you, Kapil. So, before we start the panel with our 4 distinguished panelists, I would like to briefly share the session flow with our audience. Dear colleagues and friends, due to paucity of time, we will request all our esteemed speakers to introduce themselves and their excellent work to our audience. So we have a brief presentations lined up from our 4 speakers. After this, we have 3 rounds of questions for our panelists, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So I repeat to our audience, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So may I request to keep all of your questions to the end of the panel. So with this, let me begin this session. So dear colleagues and distinguished experts, we have heard the insights and the importance of solar integrated EVs from the report that has been launched. Let me share with you a fact. Japan pioneered solar innovation with Sharp EL8026, the world's first solar-powered calculator in 1976. The same spirit of innovation continues today as Japan explores this integration of solar power in electric vehicles, advancing clean, self-sustaining mobility solutions. Now, today's panel discussion will focus on key themes like how solar energy and electric mobility can be integrated to accelerate the transition to net zero. What are the best practices and case studies? And we will look into what are key regulatory, technological, and financing enablers for scaling solar-powered e-mobility. How collaborations and between the governments and the private sector and development partners can unlock these kind of such innovations. My dear friends, with this background, we have an incredible set of experts with us, and I kindly request them each to introduce themselves and their fantastic work with us. Over to Manon Rolandin, Sustainable Development Attaché, Economic Service, Embassy of France in Japan. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joseph. I will just, is it now the presentation for 5 minutes, or do I just introduce myself?
So they're projecting the slides.
Yes, if I can have the slides, please. So in the meantime, I will just introduce myself briefly. I'm Manon Rolandin. I'm the Sustainable Development Policy Officer at the French Embassy here in Tokyo. And I would be glad to talk about the experience of France in the development of clean mobilities and how solar-powered EV can help us reach our goals. So first, like transport in France, it represents 31% of greenhouse gas emissions. And one of these 94%, there's mainly households that are responsible for more than 50% of the emissions. And France has a goal to reach full decarbonization by 2050. And to reach these objectives, there are 5 levers, like modal shift, the optimization of vehicle use for passenger and freight, controlling demand growth, or controlling the energy performance of the vehicles, and of course the electrification of the vehicles with low carbon electricity that I will try to talk more about here. Next slide, please. So our government has an objective of 50% of electric vehicles to the road fleet by 2030, with more than 400,000 charging points in 2030 or so. And we implement many regulations to ensure the transition for low carbon mobilities at the EU level, but also at the French level. So for example, we have a CO2 emission performance for new vehicles at the EU level, but also at the French level, we have some low emission zones, which are zones in which you cannot go in if your vehicle doesn't reach a certain standards. On parallel of this regulation, we have incentives for the purchase of electric vehicles through some ecological bonus, social leasing, retrofit premium, and clean vehicle microcredits. And some of them are also innovative incentives. But in order for the electric vehicle deployment, we need charging points to make sure that we can use them. So the state is promoting national plans and local plans for the development of charging station. there are some financial support from the state to help it develop on national roads and on highways. And there's also state tax credits for private charging points and subsidies for business or collective housing charging points. So overall, we have great results in France that are starting to come. The market of electric vehicle has reached 26% of the new vehicles in 2023. We have more than 1.4 million of electric vehicle in the fleet in 2025. And we have more than 63,000 charging points open to the public in February 2025. It's one charging point for every 14 electric vehicles in France. We are third in Europe on the charging points after the Netherlands, which are 20% of the EU charging points, and Germany, which has 18% of the EU charging points, and France have 17%. And next slide, please. So in order to have a decarbonized EV fleet, solar is one of the very interesting solutions, both for the national grid management and for a resilient and autonomous charging. And in France, we have a national grid that is mostly decarbonized through nuclear and renewables. But we have a problem, is that we produce more electricity than what we use. So we have a high peak of solar energy between 12 and 4 p.m. And the surproduction has cost more than 80 million euros to energy producers in France last year because they had to sell the electricity at a negative price. And it created also a tense situation on the grid that could lead to the shut-off of some renewable energy installation in the meantime. So in this sense, EV is a great tool to serve as an integrating instrument by absorbing the surplus of energy created by solar during peak production hours. And it helps stabilize the network, ensuring cheap prices for the consumers because electricity is less costly at the time, and some revenues for the energy producer. The development also of new technologies like vehicle-to-grid could even enhance this in the future because it could allow the consumer to restitute some of the energy that has been provided by solar during the day at night to the grid to bring them also some revenue by selling the electricity and stabilizing the network at the same time. But the solar station can also be powered via autonomous solar installation through power purchase agreement or through individual panel installations on households. And this could also help stimulate solar power increase in the French electricity mix to help us reach solar targets, because there is 22.9 gigawatt of installed capacity in France at the date of September 2025. And we have an objective to reach 100 gigawatts in 2050, which is still a long way to go. And we are implementing some mechanism and some policies to help reach photovoltaic installation in all its forms on the ground, on buildings, on national agricultural lands, with acceleration of renewable zones and local planification, etc. But one of the great tools also to finance a new solar installation is through power purchase agreement that the state is also promoting, when a company can sign a direct PPA with an energy producer, with or without surplus injection into the grid after all, to help them to have stable energy costs on the long term, and to respond to the increase in electricity need for EV fleet, while also providing financing for solar projects. So in 2023, there was more than 2.2 gigawatts of self-consumption solar power infrastructures in France. As you can see on the map, the repartition of the installed solar photovoltaic power is quite higher in the south of France. Because there's more solar potential, of course. So virtual PPA can also be a way to supply solar power for EV through station or through the grid, but it will also help ensure stable prices and to finance projects in other parts of France. And of course, the solar vehicle, the electric vehicle are charged in households most of the time. 80% of the charging are made at home. So the state is also providing some support for individuals to install panels in their households. And there's also new technologies such as smart charging station that can synchronize the charging with a solar power production peak to maximize the auto consumption and minimize the grid impact. And the government is supporting that through investment bonus, tax exemption, purchase obligation, and other kind of support. So thank you very much. That's all for me, and over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, May I request now Mr. Sandip Tanasheri, founder and CEO, to introduce their fantastic work with us. Over to you, sir. Can you unmute yourself, sir, please?
Hi, everyone. I hope you can listen. Yeah, so today I will talk about decarbonizing marine transport, and in the presentation and the context setting, a lot of talk on the vehicles on the road. So I will focus on water and what we have achieved and what can be replicated across the different countries and applications. So now when we talk about decarbonizing, we are talking about electrification and either use of solar directly or in form of other renewable energies indirectly. And we all know why we are doing this shift to electric. So one of the factors where solar will do an added benefit as opposed to pure electric is reduction of operating expense, which I will explain in detail, as well as a reduction of grid usage, which may not always be 100% clean. So these are two additional benefits you may get by shifting to solar. Now, in marine transport, when we say there are three groups of vessels, whether it is small boats, the medium size or small ships, or the larger ships, and each of them have a different technology play here. The solar can significantly contribute in the boats, which in our experience, these ferries are at least 50% of the energy can come from solar. And in the example of ferry operating in India, it is about 67%. And then as we go to slightly bigger vessels, the solar contribution is reduced to almost 25%, with probably mix of other technologies also needing to play a role. Whereas when we go to larger ships, solar plays very small directly, which is 1%. But indirectly, from a clean hydrogen and green hydrogen, you may be able to contribute a significant number. This is from a contribution percentage. So in any vessel, we are looking at these 5 energy sources, of which solar is one important element in terms of the boats itself. And when we look at the layout of usage of energy source, it's more or less most of the green technologies go into the electric grid, and the fuel DGs or genset has a lot of a backup system itself. This is how the mix might be. Now, what is happening in the industry that is enabling the shift is already small boats, the auxiliary energy, that is except propulsion, has already started shifting. In the smaller ships, it's very early stage, and green ammonia, green hydrogen are all interim at the moment, and LNG seems to be the interim fuel. This is what is happening across the world. A lot of policy initiatives have been announced both in India and across the world. And in terms of numbers, the boats, there are about 10 million numbers worldwide, and the large ships are 100,000. This is just to set the context. So in already the application wise, the smaller boats are operation, and there are a lot of boats in operation, and new applications are also emerging with a mix of these technologies, which I will explain a bit more. So important element when we talk is the cost of energy. So what is really the cost of energy across these 5 different energy sources, and that drives the adoption. And the main driver here is the cost of grid in a country, as well as the cost of fuel. So I've just given an example of 4 different countries ranked in among this 150 odd countries in terms of the spread. So the difference in cost between the fuel and the grid will drive the electrification. So easy electrification is in Norway, where the spread is very high, whereas in US the spread is very low, and that enables the electrification not so directly by pure economics. Now, the another thing is, for each country, you can see that the spread is higher in auxiliary energy than propulsion. So which means almost always the shift to auxiliary energy, which is everything except propulsion, has to go immediately. This is to be done immediately, and then the propulsion may be depending on the countries and the grid cost, etc. Now, let's take the example from a pure electric to solar. So there was this numbers thrown off, and I just want to give that context. When we have multiple sources of energy, it is a weighted energy you have to take. So if you take a pure diesel at 40 cents, when it goes to an electric, it becomes 12 cents per kilowatt, and it went to solar, it becomes 4 cents. So there is one third reduction in each. So this is a crucial decision to shift to solar in the vessel itself. And this is unlike EVs. The solar conversion is economical already. So I just have to push for electrification, and then the shift to solar is an automatic process. And then I just want to give an example of Aditya Ferry, which is India's first solar ferry, now operating for more than 8 years. So it's about 93 tons of CO2 savings each year, and it's one of the world's cheapest per passenger kilometer. It's less than 0.05 cents per passenger kilometer. It's almost 4 paise in terms of Indian context. And that's in operation for 8 years, more than 2 million passengers, etc. So this is a successful model. It is not just pure shift to electric and then shift to solar. It is also a lot of design element in terms of weight reduction and drag reduction, very important elements. So if you see the TCO of the solar ferry, comparing to a $300,000 diesel ferry, this is about 400,000. But if you see the life cycle cost, it's less than half. So it's a significant reduction in TCO. And there are so many ferries operating in India in terms of numbers, about 34 boats in operation, 38 under construction. In fact, some of the ISA member countries like Seychelles, Maldives, etc., already there are ferries which we are exporting, and this is in operation. So this is the number, and this clearly means a shift to electric so that we can have a cleaner and quieter oceans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That's so informative and insightful. Now, I request Kartikeya Haryani, who is founder and CEO of Group Bilyani, who is also a member of the Global MOU Network, to introduce their fascinating work around the charging infrastructure and the fleet operations powered by the solar energy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, ISA and Drive to Zero, Stephanie, for inviting us for this wonderful session. May I request for the slides? Or do I need to share it myself, Joseph?
No, the team will share it, sir.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Sandit. Never thought that the ferries can be electrified, and there's more energy on the non-propulsional side of things. So thank you so much for educating us on that as well. Next time when you take a boat, we'll remember this. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Oh, okay. Well, my name is Kartikeya Haryani. I'm the founder of our Group Bilyani and ChargeZone, which is our flagship brand in India. Incidentally, earlier this month, we became India's largest EV charging network. We have a network of more than 13,500 charging points, focusing on high-speed charging for four-wheelers, that is for cars, electric buses, and now even electric trucks. I'll request for the next slide. So today I'll just touch upon how do we bring in solar photovoltaics and energy storage as microgrids for charging station. All right. Yeah. I will request for a quick flip of the slides in the interest of time. Moving next. Yeah, that's our brief. You see, we are pretty much spread largely on the north, west, and southern part of India. Founded in 2018, 2019, we are in the 6th year of our journey and having a super strong partnerships with various car OEMs. Most of them are the Indian ones like Tata AV, Mahindra, and also the other globally OEMs such as Audi, Mercedes, Hyundai, MG Motors, being a part of our network and the tech platform as well. Currently, we serve more than 200,000 customers on almost monthly basis, and the network is just getting busier, I would say, in terms of utilization. And this, in fact, last month we have reached the 10 gigawatt hour of monthly energy units in terms of dispensing and sales. Moving to next. Yeah, this briefly been our journey. You see more of a co-branded charging stations with Audi, with Tata, which has been coming up next slide, please. And apparently, as we have seen, the Indian market has been very, very unique because if I'm sure most of the participants here in the audience would have visited India in the past, and it's a mobility market in general, which comprises of 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, and that makes it very, very unique. And on the other side, there is a large mobility transport, which is seeing a mega change from fossil fuels to alternate energy, as we call it, in terms of CNG, LNG, electric, and maybe in future hydrogen as well. But over the last 6 years, we have seen e-mobility evolving from nothing, from almost few hundred vehicles to now more than 500,000 vehicles plying on the road. And I'm referring to largely to cars and electric cars, buses, and now trucks, as I said earlier. Of course, India is a home to the largest 2-wheeler market in the world. But we believe that the energy transition in mobility shall be made more impactful once the large vehicles or large commercial vehicles, they transition to electric. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is a little glimpse of our network of charging stations. Yeah, next, please. Yeah, next. All right, now I'll just spend a minute over here. So very often you see charging stations which are maybe in London, in Paris, which are generally what we call AC charging points on a curbside or on a street where the car is getting parked and there's a parking and charging facilities. In India, we did a little differently. Instead of electrifying cities, in a sense, getting charging stations to cities, we instead focused on highways, because electric mobility or adoption of any electric vehicle is never meant only for mobility within the city. It's sometime an electric car owner or driver would love to drive outside the city. And I think we realized this very early in 2021. And today we have electrified more than 40,000 kilometers of highways. And in fact, you can drive from Delhi, which is northern part of India, all the way to Chennai using our network. And Chennai is in southern part of India, as some of you might be familiar with the Indian territories. And these are the charging hubs which has amplified the adoption of all kind of 4-wheelers in the country. Now, over the last few months, we started focusing on bringing in renewable energy integration on the upstream side. And this photograph on the bottom right you see is actually a solar rooftop, which is not a very big capacity, just around 55 kilowatt. But it is supporting 1.2 megawatt of charging capacity. And this has been primarily driven by our adoption of both solar and battery energy storage system. As we all know that power grid in any country, I mean the entire electricity grid, is always faced by challenges, and one of the major challenges is uptime or reliability. When we put up a charging station as Team ChargeZone, we thought if a customer comes to our charging station or gas station, you can't say that I have run out of gas, I have run out of electricity. So we decided to bring in battery energy storage systems as a backup measure to begin with. Very quickly, we realized that as the cost of the battery energy storage started reducing, we saw a very practical application of storing renewable energy during the daytime and using it during the nighttime. And therefore, we are currently on the cusp of a very interesting phase of business to bring in both solar microgrids and battery energy storage together, acting not only as a backup, but also as a primary source of electricity, because suddenly we found ourselves as a power generator and a consumer as well. In other words, it's called prosumer, that you produce and consume your own power. So moving to the next slide, I'd like to just quickly take you through some of the outline measures. Yeah, please move further. Keep moving further until, yes, please. These are our automotive partnerships, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, please go on. All right. Yeah. So most of you might be pretty much aware of this entire microgrid concept or mini grid concepts. And having said that, today, earlier we thought that battery energy storage with solar PV will only act as a backup, but right now it is becoming an additional source of power, as I mentioned earlier. It has also helped us to reduce the overall cost of power in terms of the TCO, the total cost of ownership, over the period of, let's say, 15 to 20 years. We all heard about solar PV for having a life cycle of 25 to 30 years. But when we look at the battery energy storage part, which was a luxury, let's say, a couple of years ago, but now it has not only become as a necessity, but it is also become extremely competitive. And this brings us what we call as a concept of always on supply. Yeah, in the sense we are always on, always available, 24/7 for our EV customers. And in India, let me also highlight, while in Western European markets or US, we've seen a lot of adoption of electric cars. In Europe, you saw a lot of, a big momentum being built for adoption of electric trucks. And of course, China, I think there's no comparison, it's already up the orbit. But I'm talking about other countries which have been on either a nascent phase or in the phase 1 of expansion. In India, we have seen that all three major vehicles are taking off over the last 5 to 6 years. That is electric cars, and then electric buses for city commute, and now intercity as well. And of course, the large commercial electric trucks, as Stephanie mentioned in her speech earlier, that there is definitely a demand which has moved from pilots to commercial adoption, from a kind of a subsidy supported adoption of electric trucks to what you call competitive, cost effective on a TCO basis that an electric truck can really beat a diesel over the period of 10 to 12 years. And then that's one of the venture we have, Billion Electric Mobility, is one of India's leading electric truck platform in the Indian market. Now, how did we go about doing this? Moving to the next slide, that while solar PV and BSS has an advantage, which I mentioned that we already have adopted or deployed to nearly 7 supercharging stations on highways in the country. But this is a very, very basic outline. Pretty familiar, pretty much familiar to most of us. But at the end of the day, when we look at one significant push that we are bringing, so an EV charging station until now has been an AC, because the grid is an alternating current grid, it's an AC grid. So you have an AC charger which converts from AC to AC. Then you have a DC charger which again converts from AC to DC. And in turn, you also face a lot of system losses, which are ranging from anywhere from 7% to 12%. But now what we have brought in as an innovation is a DC-DC charger. In other words, that by DC coupler, because BSS or battery pack stores the energy from the grid, right? You see the grid coming, or the power supply coming from the left of the slide, including the solar microgrid. And when you bring this in, you store it to the BSS, But post BSS, if I have to fix an AC to DC charger, then I have to put in a power conditioning unit. Again, I'm losing almost 15 to 20% of power. Overall into the system, which includes solar PV generation, BSS storage, power conditioning unit, and then AC to DC conversion and so on. But what we eliminated as a one significant step is bringing a DC-DC coupler. And this is becoming an extremely popular design and an avatar in terms of EV charging infrastructure across some of the global markets in the industry. So finally, moving to the next slide, we have these are very optimized, and this is more for the tech geeks in the audience. That what's been a difference between charging and discharging cycles when you adopt with BSS or without BSS. Well, that kind of sums up my presentation for the day. Thank you so much for your time, and I'd love to hear any of the questions you may have at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this insightful information that was shared. Yeah. Now, may I request Dr. Keiichi Komoto, Principal Researcher, Mizuho Research and Technologies, to share his ongoing fantastic work to all our audience and our panelists. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So, could you see my slide? Okay, thank you so much. I will start. So I'm Keiichi Komoto from Japan. Locally in Japan, we have a couple of projects regarding VIPP, mainly from the technology R&D point. In parallel, Japan is joining the international research projects like this. So IEA PUPS task system. This is one project under the IEA International Energy Agency. So I'm in charge of managing this project. So today I'd like to introduce this one briefly. Next, please. Yes. Okay. So when we established this project, our target motivation is how to reduce GHG emission from the transport sector, as well as expanding the PV markets. Now, this is, as I said, the one authorized approved project under the IEA. So now 10 countries are joining, like the left side. And so you can see right here, when we consider how to use the PV electricity for vehicles and so on. And there are several approaches, and now we are focusing on the PV power vehicles and direct integration of the PV on the car roof and car body. Other approaches, so now you could see how to use the PV on the charging station. So these two applications are our main targets, and Japan is mainly leading the discussion of VIPV, and our co-leader, France team, is now leading a charging station. Yes. Next, please. Yes. So today I will introduce only the VIPV. This is just the snapshot of the cover page of our technical reports. So you could see these reports, the IAP website, the bottom line of slides. You can see. And so you could Google the IAP UPS. You can come to these reports. So next, please. So I will show some of the essence when we learned from these studies. So VIPP. So currently, honestly speaking, so when we start these targets, our main target is a passenger vehicle. But looking at the world, the other vehicles, so lightweight vehicle, and so the reefer truck, and so on, and light commercial vehicle, and quite active. On the other hand, integrating the PV into the passenger vehicle is very difficult from economics and the visibility and so on. Okay. And not only the vehicles, but also some transporting the car, the available area of PV cell is very limited. And therefore, when we would like to get the big electricity, we have to touch the high efficiency PV cells. So currently, around 20% is a conventional one. But maybe over 30% PV cell, silicon or perovskite tandem and so on might become. Next, please. And so looking at the markets, the PV baby few markets, almost nothing. But recently is some trucks and buses using PV are coming to the market, especially in Japan and Europe. And also not markets. So now most of the countries are now trying to penetrate the electric vehicle. And in such case, we need a lot of infrastructure charging station. But if the PV could contribute to produce electricity for the vehicles, the number of the charging stations might be reduced. And also the PV can support the long distance driving. Yes. And these are the possible benefits we could see. Yes. So next, please. And the environmental benefits. So needless to say, substituting grid electricity by renewables such as PV, the CO2 emission by transport could be reduced. But you have to understand, so looking at the future, the low carbon grid electricity could be realized. In such case, the direct the impact by PV utilization on the vehicle is not so big impact. You have to understand. On the other hand, we have to look for another value how to use PV for vehicles. Okay. So next, please. So based on such results, now our task 17 will move to the next stage from this year to more 3 years. So this is the items we'd like to study from now. Yes. And so some of them is the questions that are technical issues, how to integrate, how to evaluate, and so on. And also now we have moved to how to evaluate the environmental impact and also the end of life management. So as you may know, in Europe, for example, the EUV directive is quite a significant issue. Then we have to consider how to replace the PV panel, integrating on the roof, and also what kind of hazardous materials have to be avoided. So that's quite an important issue for us. On the other hand, as I said, in Japan, in Europe, the PV trucks are getting popular. Yes. In such case, the PV electricity will substitute the diesel gas. Because most of the ICE is generating electricity by consuming the diesel. But electricity could be provided directly from solar. The big impact of the reducing fuel consumption. That impact of the CO2 emissions is quite big. And sometimes, in some cases, maybe 5 to 10% of the fuel cost could be reduced by PV. Now that's my interim calculation. Okay. And also, as I introduced my previous speakers, now we like to try to expand the application to consider flying drone and balloon, and so, of course, the ships and so on, train. Yes, next, please. Yes, so now we could see this kind of the application, but we should expand this kind of availability. Yes, that's all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Komoto, for your remarks, and fascinating. So now we will go to the part 2 of this panel discussion, where we'll have 2 rounds of questions to our panelists. And I just wanted to reiterate to our audience, we'll have a Q&A at the end of this panel. Please prepare your questions ready for our panelists. So with this, let me pick up. We have heard from our esteemed speakers that the integration of solar energy into electric mobility, or electric powered mobility, is not just a climate solution, but it's an economic imperative also. So both Karthikeya and Sandip both have showcased how in the real world the economics are working it out. Karthikeya, I'm coming to you, like you are involved in both setting up solar powered charging infrastructure and operating e-trucks. How do you view the role of solar microgrids and storage in reducing the total cost of ownership for commercial EV fleets? And what kind of policy de-risking mechanism would accelerate these kind of investments in solar-powered e-freights? Yeah.
Right.
Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Joseph. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, the microgrids are here to stay. Solar PV and battery energy storage as a combination is a very compelling offer in terms of EV charging, because you are suddenly a prosumer that you generate your own electricity and you consume and dispense it for your customer. Now, as far as the policy is concerned, Joseph, I think it's all there. Yeah, it is up to now the industry to step up the game. Yeah, very often we have seen that, and a lot of discussion has happened around the government policies or the support and so on. But if you really see that renewable energy sector has already come out of the subsidy game that is applicable to most of the developing economies like India, also includes developed nations already. And therefore, as an industry player, we are already implementing it as a must-do thing in terms of bringing in the RE on the upstream side. On the other angle, when we speak about EV industry, a lot of discussion has been around the fossil dependence on fossil fuels, and the clean mobility is not as much as clean because as an EV player, you're still dependent upon the grid, which is fossil powered, and therefore the RE integration becomes even more important when it comes to producing green electrons and selling them for our customers. As much as a ZET, zero emission truck operator, I would love to have EV charging as a service which is largely from green electrons rather than blue or gray or whatever other colors. And as I said, the TCO is already established, and this comes from the fact that the large scale utility RE plants are having a mandatory 20%, 25% of the BSs, and the cost of the power, both generating, storing, and selling it, is less than the cost of grid power on the street. Yeah. So I think we have already arrived in terms of the cost competitiveness. It is all about now how quickly you implement at a scale. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So as per IRENA research, solar levelized cost of electricity has declined almost like 89% since 2010, making it cheaper than fossil fuel-based generation in most parts of the world. Ms. Manon, I'm looking at you. France has been a strong supporter of innovation in clean transport, including in its overseas territories, where challenges such as limited grid capacity and difficult transport conditions persist. Based on this experience, how can innovations like solar integrated e-mobility be leveraged to support these developing regions facing similar constraints such as vulnerable electricity grids or geographic insularity? May I have your remarks on it, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Joseph, for your question. So yeah, I can reflect on this issue using France's experience in its overseas territory, because there's a very different situation than in France mainland. And solar-powered EV have advantages building on the territory's strength and also responding to the complexity of the territory's context. First, energy supply is highly dependent on fossil fuel importation, and half of the energy imported is used for mobility. So the good news is that the solar potential is very high in those territories, and the increase in solar-powered mobility can help decrease fossil fuel importation dependency for decarbonization and for autonomy. So it can also provide financing for solar power plant construction, like I explained in my previous presentation. So to reach the objective of 100% renewable electricity mix in overseas territories that France has fixed for its overseas territory. Second, the grid does not benefit from interconnection, and it's also getting older. So the management is much more complex, and there are enhanced renewable integration issues. So EV can help manage a solar surplus by absorbing it during production peak. And autonomous solar station can also ease the strain on the grid when it's not connected. And finally, I think the standards of living also are lower on this territory. There's higher inequalities, and there's a greater need for mobility access to economically develop the territory. So solar charging can ensure long-term lower costs for households or a business, and therefore reducing the mobility cost. So of course, I give you some broad reflection on how solar power EV can be used to bring solution for the clean mobility in those territories. But of course, every solution must be tailored to the specific context of each territory, because there's not one transition, but many transitions. But that's some reflection that I can share. Thank you so much.
Dr. Kenchi, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, as we know, Japan has excelled in integrating solar in buildings and transport systems. Now, looking at that example, how can the countries in the global south adopt or adapt these practices? Could you have your remarks, please?
Thank you for the question. So, honestly speaking, the PV cost in Japan is quite expensive compared to the other countries, even for the conventional rooftop and on-the-ground system. Yeah. But on the other hand, considering this kind of the application, integrated application for building and the big and so on, we have to consider the total cost of the project. So when we see the PV electricity cost, and that's quite expensive, because on the vehicle and on the building is quite in bad condition compared to the conventional roof. Therefore, the electricity generation is quite small. Therefore, the comparatively the electricity cost is expensive. But on the other hand, we could see another value. For example, in case of the vehicle, the many users of electric vehicle is now wanting to how to reduce the opportunity for charging. So on the other hand, long distance driving could be requested. For PV, for example, could contribute such aspect. And also, we sometimes communicate with European countries' experts, so they would like to have electric vehicle, but no charging station and so on. Therefore, if they could have the solar on the roof, quite helpful. Okay. Thus, so I repeat. So we have to see the total cost and the value of the project, not only for the PV. Yes.
That was great. Thank you so much. Sandit, I've been following your Aditya and Neval's initiatives for many years now. So I have a question. So I know Neval's solar electric ferries are a global first. Now, can you just summarize for this benefit of our audience, what have been the key lessons, in short, in cost, reliability, and public perception?
Yeah, if you look at the cost, we look at both CapEx and OpEx. So primarily from a CapEx angle, one significant factor is how the importance of good design to reduce the energy need and thereby the battery size. And then the second element we try to always do is significantly increase the size of solar, also to reduce the battery size and the CapEx. Right? Not just the OpEx part, even the CapEx also. And from an India perspective, from where we are sitting, and indigenization was a crucial element. So like the EV, for example, EV battery cost maybe about $250 per kilowatt hour, whereas a marine certified battery is about $1,000. And that's a huge gap. And as far as we are concerned, one big factor we are trying to do is indigenization, building the whole system, battery, marine certification, etc., to reduce that cost to on par with EV. Also, the scale matters there, but the marine certification is expensive, and that's one factor in capex. From an opex, obviously the same design to reduce energy need reduces opex, and solar contribution also reduces opex. Now, beyond this, there is this factor for reliability. So some things we have to do in addition to a typical board that exists is how to improve the redundancy by having 2 powertrain instead of 1, how to make it electrically independent. This improves that safety aspect as well. And then how to make it very rugged. So these are all S1 duty cycle, which means 4,000 hours or more than 12 hours running time in a day. So these are important things that improves the public perception. Beyond that, like obviously the benefits like no noise, vibration, smell of fuel. These gives a feeling of better boat experience. And then we try to make the boat much more spaciousness, because that's one constraint in public transport, that's very crowded and congested. Then try to give it safer by making it catamaran so that the stability margins are higher. Like most accidents in India or many of the developed world is primary because of overcrowding and overloading of these boats. So we increase the stability margin, make it catamaran, etc. And then even it could be even cheaper if the savings in OPEX are passed on to consumer. The ticket's price can be lower, even lower. Yeah, this is what we have been trying to do. Thanks.
Just out of curiosity, in terms of the lithium battery variants, is there anything different that you consider as compared to the road transport EV battery variant when you think about marine?
If you see in the road, NMC has been very popular, or NMC and its own variant like LCA, LM, etc. has been very popular, mainly because it's very sensitive to weight. So your power to weight ratio, and LFP was not popular, and I use the word was not because now there is a shift to LFP even happening in EV. BYD and Tesla is also moving on the low cost models, etc. So LFP is what we have always been advocating in terms of having higher safety margin, LFP or LTO in case of fast charging requirements. So now it is converging to LFP both in EVs, but marine has always been LFP. But it's that additional marine certification that makes it more expensive. And then the scalability is less compared to EV. So again, the per kilowatt cost is higher. And these two we are trying to address to make sure that then the electric boats can be as costly or cheap as a diesel boat if we achieve that in the next 1-2 years.
That's great. Over to you, Joseph, for any round of questions.
Manan, can you reflect on how Japan and France bilateral or multilateral collaborations could support scalable vehicle integrated photovoltaic pilots, or joint industrial partnerships in the Indo-Pacific region?
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. So Japan was already a pioneer in core solar technologies, and now Japan also has a high expertise in vehicle integrated photovoltaic pilots. So this may be one of the more advanced country in the world than that, with some functioning demonstrators and an excellence in panel integration, of course. But in France, we're also having some R&D programs, and I will talk about one specific French actor, which is the French Alternative Energies and Autonomic Energy Commission, we call it CEA. It's a key player in research, development, and innovation in France. And they are developing R&D in VIPV through the Solar Energy Institute, that's called INES. And they are working with the French automobile industry to integrate solar modules in French vehicles. And they are also developing some demonstrators. So, for example, they're working with Stellantis or former Plastic Omnium, which is now OP Mobility. So CEA, of course, is exploring some future collaboration with Japan on this topic. Because they can build on previous fruitful cooperation in solar field, on materials, on cell, and on innovations also. And both countries have a strategic interest in the VIPV technology. For example, for the use during a natural disaster situation. And this can provide a direct business case for the VIPV technology. So a Franco-Japanese cooperation could help develop the maturity of the technology in order to reach a viable commercializable model. And for example, the CER would be able to bring resources that are tailored to the industry's needs because their model is designed on offers for the industry players to specifically scale up technologies. So for example, the Solar Energy Institute is providing real-life test environment and also test laboratory with the machines that are suited to industrial processes. And the financing models also are quite innovative with a collaborative public and industry finance. And this would be an example to reach like a scale up, the technologies. And this kind of cooperation could help promote the technology in the world with low costs and to make sure that it's working. Thank you so much.
I have a question for you, Dr. Komoto. Do you see the VIPV becoming a commercial mainstream? And what sectors, say from light commercial or school buses or ferries, might break through first? Any response for that?
Currently, so as I mentioned, the PV integration of the heavy-duty vehicle are now coming to the market. But also, as I said, that application is not driven by electricity. So PV electricity can substitute the gas consumption for the generating electricity through the alternator. On the other hand, from viewpoint of the electric vehicle, I think the small size vehicle quite better, and so lightweight, and so sometimes such vehicle will not need to drive the long time distance one time. So for the very small distance commuters could be the very good application for PV, I think. Yeah.
Joseph, do you have any other question?
Yes, ma'am. One last question to all our panelists to share their reflections on what one concrete action, policy or finance or around innovation can be collectively taken next 12 months to accelerate solar EV in emerging economies. So I would want all our speakers to reflect on this, starting with Karthikeya. May I ask you to share your remarks on this, please?
I guess, Joseph, we are passed by policies, right? I mean, EVs are here to stay. Renewable energy has been into our ecosystem for the last 15 to 20 years. Now it's all about product, innovation, product, and scale up, or deployment and scale up, let's put it that way. So there has been now a product across all the categories. In fact, as Sandip mentioned that there is also ferries which are now getting electric. We have seen electric yacht as well, as much as we've seen other cars on the roads and in the country. I think the biggest deterrent has been the financing factor and the cost of financing. And this deterrent, unfortunately, which on the other side of the coin has supported fossil fuels for a very long time. If I want to buy a car, and any petrol or diesel car, it's so easy to get financing, right? That's not a case with electric, and especially the commercial electric vehicles. And if you really, as a country, as a society, as a community, as an individual, if I want to really make an impact onto the environment, the adoption of commercial EVs is a high or super high priority as we speak. And unless and until the government does not put into a priority financing bracket, that happened with RE, renewable energy, 10 years ago. At least in India, I've seen that growth myself. I've been an RE player between 2010 to 2018. And until 2014, when government did not prioritize it as a priority financing or lending sector, it never took off. Until then, it was always a case of a pilot's trial and error and so on. So according to me, Joseph, if there could be all think tanks such as Drive to Zero, ISA, etc., can work along with the governments around the world, especially in the emerging economies, to really help support as a priority sector for lending, I think this will be a great boost. And that's how countries like China has leapfrogged. And honestly, more than subsidies is a financing part, which is more important and not the subsidies. That's my take so far. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sandit, I would like to pick on this. As Karthikeyan mentioned, the cost of financing is one of the biggest hurdle, and solving this piece of puzzle will be next priority. So what would be your reflection on a concrete action or a plan around policy, finance, or innovation can we collectively take in next 12 months to accelerate this innovation, solar EV in emerging economies?
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I never realized that there is a financing issue in EVs as opposed to diesel in what existing in automobiles. Because from a marine world, we see that for boats financing, there exists none. Whether it's diesel or electric, there is no financing in place because there is some policy or SURFACE Act which prevents that. That's the context in India. I don't know about other countries. So you just cannot finance a boat like a car. So that's across board. It's nothing to do with electric or diesel. And there is a complete lacuna in interest in terms of the government for an e-boat compared to electric vehicles, because you can see the FAME 1, 2, 3, all this have completely disregarded the boat. So this exists and we are okay with that. I mean, we are living with that. So the main thing is what Karthik mentioned about we forget policy and government support. That's what at least we are looking at economics, and we know that clearly solar electric is more economical than diesel, and that's what we are focusing. But it's just that hand-holding in the first few years will help any industry to get the traction and scale to achieve that final number parity, which I hope to do otherwise, which may take longer. But policy support like those will help. And financing is a key for adoption of both, whether it's diesel or electric, doesn't matter. Electric may be helpful if it works, but that's the same thing as financing as a highlight. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Ms. Manon, what about your reflections on this? What can one concrete action, policy or finance or innovation can we collectively take in next 12 months to accelerate the solar EV ecosystem in emerging economies?
Thank you, Joseph. I'm afraid I will not be very original because I don't have the magic wand or the perfect solution to bring to everyone that would enable solar-powered EV to reach everybody. But I will start by, of course, agreeing on finance and on the need for incentive and support. But I would say that the first basis is to lay the regulatory framework in the countries and to make sure that there's a favorable environment for EV to develop and for solar to develop, and to help businesses or individuals to be able to install panels, to be able to build solar farms without lengthy administrative complex procedures and without additional costs, and to make sure that this goes more smoothly and that it's not a constraint to the development of either solar, either EV. And then, of course, financing, and I agree with the fellow speakers on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Komoto, last, what about your reflections? What concrete action can we take to accelerate SEV in emerging economies?
Thanks so much. First, so I'm coming from a private company, so I cannot say what Japan can do. So anyhow, from the starting point, as I said, I'm organizing the international project. So now IEA PPS now is exploring the potential of collaboration with India and also ESA, never say. So I hope this opportunity could be the starting point for our collaboration. Yes. That's all. Thanks much.
Thank you, Dr. Komoto. To all the audience, now we will take these questions. Before we take the questions, one final remark is, from all the thoughts and reflections, what we heard is, let's stop treating solar as an accessory rather than treating this as an accessory, and start positioning it as a primary fuel for our clean transport. And this is one of the theme that's coming across from the industry perspectives, from the policymakers perspectives, which is a fascinating one. Now we would open to the audience for questions. If anyone has, please raise your hand and we can send out the mic. Yeah.
Does anyone have questions? We have an interpreter for helping the interpretation. We'll just wait for the questions. And if there aren't any, we'll just wait for a minute. Maybe we can just wind up because I've got signal from the organizers that we need to finish. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the ISA, ADB, and CalSTART, I express my thanks to all the speakers for providing their valuable insights and sharing their rich experience in the EV sector. And a big thank you to the Expo organizers, theme studio coordinators for helping us conduct this session. And a deep gratitude to the in-person and online participants for their time and interest in joining our session. And ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to mention to you, because some of the member countries, it's still dark and night as we speak here, for our Africa, Latin America, and other member countries, we will be sending them the recording, which we have on the YouTube for their benefit. And also a big thank you to our project implementation agency, ICF India, who presented the key findings of the solar electric vehicle sector. And we will upload the consultation report that we launched today. And for everyone's review and comments, we will wait for a month or maybe a month and a half. And after that, we'll finalize the report based on the feedback that we receive from our member countries and the reviewers, like participants like you. So as I said, our next plan or the next phase includes conducting country-level deep dive, support our member countries in developing national strategies, policies, and roadmaps for solar EV ecosystem. We also plan to support our member countries in pilot identification and identifying viable business models and project financing mechanisms. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just take a minute to inform about a new initiative that we've done in the area of clean transport, and we are very excited to share that. It's related to a startup in the green hydrogen for long-haul transport. So I will request my colleague to just put one slide here. This is ISA's Global Green Hydrogen Startup Challenge for Clean Transport. And we have our same implementation agency, ICF, helping us with that. Going to the next one. So I just wanted to mention this is under the GHIC platform. So GHIC platform is Global Green Hydrogen Innovation Center that ISA did along with the G20 in 2023 in partnership with ADB. And this is the website. You can have a look at it. This is a one-stop knowledge platform for green hydrogen. And so the ISA startup initiative for green hydrogen is under this platform. And we will be very soon inviting startup applications in green hydrogen value chain. And we are focusing on long-haul transport for green hydrogen and also green steel. And as you know, the green steel is very important to make the automotive body greener than what it is right now. So 20 winners will be provided a seed grant along with the other acceleration support. So the next slide. So key features and outcomes of the challenge will be this one. So this is where we are. We announced the Startup Challenge initiative last year at the COP. And now we will be launching call for applications in July. This will be a global call. And then shortlisting and selecting startups for award of seed grant will be around October timeframe. And then identification and facilitating support to selected startups and providing mentoring support will be after that. So with this, I close my remarks with deep gratitude to all the stakeholders, participants for their time and valuable feedback. Thank you all, and you have a very wonderful day. Thank you.